Om Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvadidam Gaganasadarsham Tattvamasya Laksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam. It'll be good to understand and remember, like a good friend told me yesterday when I was leaving, that this is not a hobby, it's a full-time job. He's right, it's a full-time thing. But then, with all our things that we do and the jobs that we have and the work, the families that we have to look after and so on and so forth, it's not always possible to make it a full-time endeavor physically, but at least in the mind. We should have this understanding that it is the most important part of our life to figure out the essence of our being, to figure out where permanent happiness lies, even if we won't be able to get there, but they should be in the mind. At least we may not be able to put it into practice because of the various situations we are in and so on, but it should be in the back of our mind that we're doing something that is important. If we don't have that in mind, like some of our friends said yesterday, I don't get time to do it, we get time to do what is most important for us. Isn't this a very important thing for us to do? I mean, this is the question. Let me start with this. There has to be a theoretical basis of a practice, always. When you do an experiment, there is a theoretical basis for it. And the theoretical basis, which is not just theory, but actuality, comes from as early times as the Upanishads. There is a particular set of people who think that yoga and all the practices must have come later, and the Upanishads have no mention of it. Not true. Which means either one has not studied the Upanishads properly, or somebody has confused us and taken us away from it. If you go back to the Upanishads, the earliest Upanishads, which are the 7 principal Upanishads, which have been translated and commented upon by all the acharyas, all the great teachers, starting with Shankara and so on, they do not directly mention the practice of yoga, but because they are trying to lay a base, a foundation, to show you where you are moving. This is what they are trying to do. So after that, even then, there are Upanishads, even among the principal Upanishads, the 11 Upanishads, which talk about the chanting of Om and talk about the one-pointed attention and the straight path that goes and so on in little bit real language. Why? Because it's too premature to give somebody a practice before they know why they're doing it. I get emails regularly. Somebody told me to do this, I do it, now the energy is running here and there. What am I supposed to do? I said, go ask the guy who gave you. Not that I'm unkind, but it's not right to tell somebody you practice this and then leave him and you never be able to contact this person and you're wondering, then you come to me, what am I supposed to do? Right? This is because the basics of the blueprint have not been given, because the Google map is not there. So the Upanishads draw that map. They show you where you're going. And then there are other Upanishads, especially in the Yajurveda, the Krishna Yajurveda and so on, which have a body of literature which very few people read. They are called the Yoga Upanishads. There are more than 20, 21 Yoga Upanishads, where for the first time you will come across words like energy, Shakti, Parashakti, and things like that, and the different nadis, and the hum, saw, and what Om means, and so on. So it's not as if it's not there, the Upanishads. It's the basis from which it comes. So, I'm not going to go into the Upanishads completely. I can't take up one Upanishad. I'll just be very concise about this. One, if you cannot read all the Upanishads, difficult to read all the Upanishads, there's one book which gives you the essence of the Upanishads. You can read that, the Bhagavad Gita. And it has only 18 chapters. Because a young lady was chanting beautifully yesterday, the Gita. Now, according to Vyasa himself, who is supposed to be the author, Upanishads, the Gita is the essence of the Upanishads. In fact, he likens the Upanishads to cows, and the milk that comes out of the cows, he likens it to the Upanishad, the Amrita, the immortal teachings of the Upanishad. Sarvo Upanishato Gavo, Dugdha Gopalanandana, if Krishna is the one who milks the cows, Surir Bhokta, which the wise enjoy, Dugdham Gita Amritam Mahat, that milk is the immortal nectar of the Gita. So for this session, I will prefer to take the Gita, look at it in a little way so that in a small way you have an idea of the Upanishad. So the 18 chapters. Now I want to bring to your attention that the last sentence before any chapter concludes in the Gita, kind of to prove my point, is it mentions the chapter, it mentions what it deals with, but it first says, Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita. I know those who don't know much Indian languages or Sanskrit may be a little bit of a mystery, but for all people who know at least some Indian languages, you understand this, you don't have to translate. Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita, so this is the Bhagavad Gita. Upanishads, now you understand, it is the Upanishad. And what does the Upanishad teach you? Brahma Vidyayam, the knowledge of the Supreme Brahman. And now note, very important word has been inserted. Yoga Shastri. Yoga Shastri. Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade, dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. Right, dialogue, not argument. So, this is the Bhagavad Gita which teaches you the Upanishads. It teaches you Brahma Vidya, which is what the Upanishads are talking about. But to understand this Brahma Vidya, it is not enough if you say Aham Brahmasmi. You need Yoga Shastri to get to the understanding of this Brahma Vidya. Because there is a certain belief that if you simply study and say, oh, I'm not this, I'm not, it never happens. You keep on saying that till you die, but you're still the same person. So you need to bring about some internal change in you before this can be understood. And that's where Yoga Shastra comes. Practice of yoga. Of different kinds. The Bhagavad Gita is not merely Hatha Yoga or any other. Every chapter is called a yoga. So you see what yoga means here. So, to understand this, before we proceed into the practice, and to understand also that it's an very important and serious thing that we need to look into, not a hobby. Well, you can also practice yoga asanas and keep your body healthy. Fine, that's great. Okay, no problem. But if you want to really go deep into it, then you need to look into the other aspects. So since we are on the Bhagavad Gita, the first chapter is Arjuna Vishada Yoga, which means what? Yoga of Arjuna's sorrow. The yoga of Arjuna's insecurity. The yoga of Arjuna's uncertainty. So, it's in daily life. And please remember, the Gita is supposed to have been taught in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So this is not something for one who is isolated from everything and sitting in a cave, but right here in this battlefield of life. Don't tell me I am in the midst of all this. This is exactly what it should be. While you are in the midst of it, can you get out of it? While you do your work, can you be free of the troubles that cause, the disappointment, everything. So, therefore the first chapter is called Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Not only in the Gita. Believe me, I have, after in years that have gone by, especially during the time when we were all in such a difficult situation, I've been meeting hundreds of people, at least on online, if I can't see them face to face. And as soon as this COVID pandemic was over, I have started meeting people. I don't know if you know that. I don't know any of the billionaires in the United States, but in India, I know a couple of people. They're not happy. I've been meeting those who are already up and those who are upcoming. Somebody said, if you're still upcoming, you might be nationalized. So, but I don't see anybody who is happy either with the money or with anything else. I don't see it. I'm not saying you shouldn't have money or you shouldn't have it. If so, why would they seek me out? For what? I can't give them dollars. I can't give them money. What are they looking for? Are they looking for a Padma Shri? Like somebody's father was dying to have a Padma Shri. Finally he got it. What happened? Nothing happened. He's still there. So, this is part of life, that one seeks happiness, one seeks peace, one seeks something which cannot be disturbed by any circumstances. Believe me, I've been meeting just the day, some time before I came, I met somebody who is now one of the biggest billionaires in India. Maybe in the world he has invested from. He said, can you teach me something to keep my mind happy and stable? I won't take names. So, happens. Apart from that, life is so uncertain. When last satsang we had in the United States, I think some of you are all there. So I said, death is something that can come to anybody at any time. And people, I saw them smiling, but it's a long time. Then came the COVID. I'm not saying it's a good thing. Nobody knows when one is going to die. You're face to face with death. Young people, 40 years old, admitted to hospital, don't come back. What is this life? So, it's natural that people think, is there something beyond? Is there something permanent? Is there a happiness which you can find without running away to the forest? Because you can't. It's impossible. You need to live here. You have to do your work. Right? This is what one is trying to find. This, if there is something like that. And the Upanishads have been talking about that. And the Gita, being an Upanishad, is also talking about that. So, since every chapter is called an Upanishad, the first part is when man or human beings come face to face with sorrow, Trouble which can happen to anybody. I'm not praying that it should happen, but it could happen to anybody at any time. Then you stand up, or you sit up rather, and think, now what? Where do I go from here? This situation is anybody's situation at any time. How do we get out of this? So that when you face such a situation, you know that you're free actually, you're not bothered. Nothing is going to happen. Okay. So this is the first. This everybody faces and then begins to wonder what is life all about. And the second chapter is called Sankya Yoga because it gives you a blueprint of what life is about, how the world has come into being and how to move forward, how you have been caught and therefore how you can come out of that. We are caught, we need to come out of that. So this Sankhya is about the details of how you're caught. And then comes Karma Yoga, how to get out of it. What action shall I take? Believe me, we are not talking about an actionless world. It is impossible. While in action, how to be free of the effects of it, the negative effects. It's all right to be enjoy the happy benefits, but the problem is, whenever there's a happy benefit, there's also the other side. So how do we be free of that? This is the whole thing of Karma Yoga. It's not just a philosophy of how to work. Karma Yoga simply means every karma that you perform has its effect. A cause has an effect. Every effect has a cause. It could be good or bad. How to handle this? But mean not to get too excited when it is great, not to get depressed when it is down. And that tranquility the Gita calls, anybody? Equanimity in English, yes. Stitha Pragnya. One who is prajna or conscious, good attempt, is steady in the middle of everything. Stitha Pragnya. And for that, the definition used in the Gita is Sarvatra Samabuddhaya. Which means, can the buddhi, the mind, here it's the mind, you can use Sanskrit words in different contexts. Here buddhi means the thinking faculty. Sarvatra samabuddhaya. Under all circumstances, can I keep my mind tranquil? But somebody might say, I don't want to keep my mind. Oh, then it's okay. Sarvatra samabuddhaya. Right. Now from there it goes on to different chapters, and believe me, there is a chapter called Dhyana Yoga, which teaches you how to meditate and an actual practice of meditation. It also discusses certain factors which are very important to anyone who enters this field of inquiry. One is not to be influenced by the public. What I mean to say is, don't be influenced by public opinion. But then today's media is all for public opinion. How do we kind of remain unaffected by it? The Gita in the 6th chapter, which is meditation, Dhyana Yoga says, for a yogi who is entering this path, praise and blame are same. Pritoshna sukha dukkheshu, also heat or cold, sukha or dukkha, happiness or unhappiness. Well, it doesn't become stone-hearted, that's not what it means. And praise or blame are the same. Now, this is one of the reasons why we get agitated. Look, we have to lay all these foundations. Simply by doing Kriya, to do Kriya, you need to prepare, and here are the things that you need to do. Don't depend on the opinion. Somebody calls you a fool, so what? What does it matter? If I don't know English, what does it matter to me? If you call me a fool and I don't know English. Because I've studied the language, I've built some meaning into it, right? The nama has an artha. A name is given and this is the meaning. If I don't know that, it means nothing to me. I know Hindi, so I might think you're calling me a flower, phool, and be very happy about it. See, that is a word, the meaning of the word. And your spiritual stature and your mind does not depend on what others think. No point. Let them think what they want. I'm saying this especially because many of you are married. I'm married too. Don't worry about opinion. You know what I mean. The biggest, the greatest and the most wonderful thing is marriage. From the spiritual point of view, it's the best place to break your ego. Seriously. Yesterday evening I was looking at Asterix. You know, whenever there are satsangs, I read Asterix. I don't do anything else. There's this chief vital statistics and his wife impedimenta. He's preparing his speech and she's saying blah, blah, blah. Natural, our part of life. So, yeah. So therefore, let me now examine what the Upanishad means by truth, to which I hope we are moving forward, or hope to move forward, or desire to move forward. Now, one thing is important. Since it's something very sensitive and very important, you need all your energies, at least when you're doing it, to be put into it. Can't be half-hearted about it. At least during your practice, forget about other things. Because you need energy. All the restrictions about indulging in your senses are meant to conserve your energies, not that you should be totally cut off from it, but to conserve your energies, not let your senses run away with your mind, but rather use your senses, but let your mind be in control. All the great rishis who you see in the Upanishads, none of them were totally celibates or unmarried, many of them. Yajnavalkya, the great sage, had 2 wives. I'm not saying you should have. We can't handle it, he could. So, what I'm trying to say is not talking about total monastic life. What they say is control. Some control over your senses, absolutely essential. And when I say senses, also your emotions. Anger, fear, disillusionment with other people. The reactions should be controlled. Because when you react, the energies are wasted. Instead of that, can we control them? Which is why Sarvatra Samabuddhaya, before that the Gita mentions Samniyam Indriya Gramam, one who has control over his senses. Please include emotions. Or divert your emotions to something positive which takes you on the path. This is possible. Music, beautiful music, singing, meditating, sitting in beautiful places and looking at the river. All these are sense engagements, but they conduce you to meditation, not the other way around. So, or service. Helping someone who is in trouble may sound selfish, but actually it helps you to move forward. Because then, instead of just saying, I and you are the same, I'm actually practicing it. I feel your pain, so I want to do something about it. And what I said before when we started, I reiterate. Don't worry what others think about you. Do your work. Don't get disheartened because what others say. And also don't get too elevated from some other, when people praise you. This is also important. So Babaji used to tell me, look, it doesn't matter what other people think about you. It doesn't matter what they think about you. They may think you're a yogi, they may think you're a fraud. It doesn't matter what. The moment you begin to believe what they think, you're sunk. In fact, he used the Hindi expression, मिट्टी में फंस जाओगे, कीचड़ में फंस जाओगे. So I keep myself, if somebody comes in, oh, you did this, that to me, okay, don't worry too much about it. Or if somebody says, oh, you're not teaching me anything, is there an advanced Kriya? Everybody is window shopping for more techniques. I heard there is something called Talabhya, you didn't teach me. And I say, okay, fine. Maybe you don't know. So maintain an equilibrium. And when the self becomes too fat, cut it from all sides and keep it trimmed. Good way to move into the field, spiritual practice. And if you give anything to anybody, let not the left hand know what the right hand gave. A beautiful statement. It's from the Gospel, according to Mark. So, this is the preparation. So, what were they looking at, the Upanishads? What is it that we're trying to find? Is there something that is beyond all definitions and descriptions and which is untouched by sorrow and always tranquil? Is there something like that? Because the Upanishad defines the truth as Satchitananda. Satchitananda is not one word, it's 3 words. Sat, Chit and Ananda. Sat meaning, well, you can roughly say truth, but it actually means reality. Sat, essence, reality. Essence of all things and the true reality as opposed to that which we think is real but is not. How can something be real if it's here today and gone tomorrow? So the Upanishads are seeking to find something that is there always and doesn't die and therefore not born. Anything that is born has to die. So this is the meaning of Sat, the reality, the essence, that which is always there as opposed to that which is here today and gone tomorrow. Sat. Then Chit. Oh, what is Chit? Live consciousness. It's not a material object. Well, I would also say that this is also not dead. That is different. Self-conscious consciousness. Being conscious that you're conscious being. And this consciousness is the essence of the reality. And that is the definition or attribute of that which is real, and the only thing that is real is that. Sat. And it is conscious, Chit. Mind is also called Chit because it derives from Chitta, thought. But this is the source of all thought, into which, from where thought comes and then subsides totally. Then Ananda, happiness. This everybody knows. We're all seeking happiness. It could be a wayside scone and ice cream, or it could be something more important, or it could be the bliss of the Brahman. Ananda. We all seek that in some way or the other. So the Upanishad says, but if you really want that, you need to seek within and not without. But all our joys are fulfilled by seeking satisfaction outside. which is quite okay because we have our five senses, but at some point realize that this happiness that we seek is inside us, and it is expressed through the five senses outside, in contact with the world, but is actually coming in from here. The root and the essence of all one's happiness is inside. And that happiness, that bliss, I won't even call it happiness, that bliss is also conscious and it is real. When everything is gone, it's still there. But this is Satchidananda. This is what the Upanishads are seeking. And since it is not something which can be felt by the senses, it is considered to be beyond all definitions. The moment you define, it's gone. Yeah, but there's one more element to it. Something that one can understand as a human being, you and me. Vyasa the Great, who compiled the Vedas, who wrote the Gita, and a number of things which Vyasa did. In fact, the word Vyasa means a compiler. So it's called Veda Vyasa, one who compiled the Vedas. Vyasa also wrote something, well, it was written much later, but he brought out something called the Brahma Sutras. Now, to study the Upanishads by itself is difficult. To study the Brahma Sutras is, I think, next to impossible. It's like a scripture which starts by saying, now let us look at the Brahman. What? Well, Athato Brahma Jijnasa now begins the study of the Brahman, which we don't know, because they say that it cannot be defined in words. Yad vachana vyutitam, that which words cannot describe. In manasana manyute, which the mind cannot reach, then what do you do about this? So, it's a very abstract text. Shankara has written a huge 1000-page commentary on it, and others have forget it. Now, but one thing I want to point out. While in the rest of the Upanishads, this truth which we seek, I hope we are seeking, is called Satchidananda. In the Brahma Sutra, which is also called the Vedanta Sutras of Vyasa, there's another term used, very interesting term. Asti Bhari Priya. Asti Bhari Priya. Asti, you know what Asti means? It is. Is. Yeah? Plato said something very interesting. He said, there are two things. Well, he was dualist, of course. He said there are two things. One is, I-S, capital, and is not becoming. And he said, the other is not, but is ever becoming. So, when all becoming ceases, then there is only that which is. And that includes trying to become a yogi. Now, so asti is that which is, and is always is, without any modifications, without any becoming, with no past, no present, as it is now. The truth is not something which can be memorized and put in our brain and then recalled and looked at once. It can't be the truth. There is a memory. And memory is always something about the past. It can't be the present. If it is the truth, it is now. You can't memorize it. You can't form an idea. It is. It's flowing. Is asti bhati. It is conscious and effulgent. It lights. darkness. It's conscious and it is effulgent. Bhati. And the last word, Priya. Beautiful word. It's equivalent to Ananda in some way. Priya. What is Priya? Oh, Priya. So, Priya means that which is loved, which is beloved, which is the essence of love. It's the flowering of that love which is meditation, really. It's not a selfish love, not love for your satisfaction. It's love in all its tenderness. It's not the words we usually use for love. Because nowadays very simple, oh I love him, I love him. Makes no sense. The moment it becomes a little bad, then it's all over. No. Love, good or bad, it's that which, it's this essence of the Brahman that also manifests as ordinary love. And even ordinary love we cannot define. So how can we define that, which is the root of everything? Ordinary love can we define? There are rich boys and girls who are ready to give up everything and go to the ends of the earth. Why? Because I have fallen in love. Nobody flies up in love, they all fall in love. Even in ordinary human love, one is ready to sacrifice, right? Fall. And so, can we imagine something which is the essence of this love? That is the meaning of Priya, to be dear. Not even love, it's dearness. To be dear. And the Vedanta says that this dearness, to be dear to each other, comes because in essence we are the Brahman. It is a quality of that. Attribute, not even quality, attribute. In fact, it is not, can't be defined. Two young people, even ordinary so-called love, which is basic, mostly hormonal, but doesn't matter. Two young people standing in the bus stop and looking at each other. No words. Sometimes the mouth is open. You ask them, what are you doing? We don't know. We are in love. So what's happening to you? Are kuch kuch hota hai. Nobody knows what. It's ordinary love. Imagine something which is the essence of this. What happens? This is where we need to go. And all the feeling of dearness, affection and everything that we have is a partial manifestation of this. So we have a place, we have a rope to catch on to. So when you say Asti, Bhati, Priya, I like to start with Priya, Bhati, Asti. Because Priya is something we can understand. Asti, difficult to understand. Bhati, difficult to understand. Priya, yes. So from the lofty heights of all-pervading supreme love, we come down to what we know about affection and carry on from there. Which is why I say that the element of devotion, which is defined as bhakti in the literature, is very essential for any spiritual development. Because you can develop your brain and bring and have all kinds of conclusions, but if the heart doesn't wake up, I'm not talking about the physical heart, you know what I mean, the core of our being. If that doesn't wake up, we're not moving forward. So some people ask if you practice. Some people ask if we are practicing Kriya or any other sadhana. It could be many people come to, can you give me Sri Vidya? I stopped for a while. I don't know what this guy is trying to say. It's not a joke, first of all. So, whatever be the sadhana you follow, whatever be the method, if your heart and your feelings are drying up, if when you practice there is no feeling, there is only some mechanical thing, we're not moving on the right path. The heart has to light up. So, yeah. So, this is what the Upanishads are presenting before us. Why I am using the Upanishads as an example? Because they're the earliest that we can hear or know about the reality. Since we have said this, I like to go a little into intellectualization, a bit, because all of us think we are intellectuals, so a little bit of intellectual stimulation is good. Although Upanishad is clear that the most intelligent person quickly realizes the limitations of his or her intellect. Very quickly. In fact, the Gayatri mantra, which you chant from childhood, actually says, stimulate my intelligence. Yo yona prachodayat. May my intelligence be stimulated. Why? Because when your intelligence is sharp and good, you realize its limitations and say that it doesn't end here, there must be something beyond. The high school level intellectual doesn't believe this. As you go forward, you come to an uncertainty. You know it. I mean, if you go into physics, you start with Newtonian physics. Everything is defined and perfect. Yeah, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Okay. Good for daily life, yes. And then you go further and further and further, then you get into quantum mechanics and quantum physics, and there suddenly you're as uncertain as you started. The most important theory still going on in physics is called the theory of probability, which means nobody knows for sure, because you can't see the smallest brick of nature, which is called the quantum. No one can see it even with the most powerful microscope. You can only guess its existence through its reactions in a field. Physicists would know this. And the strange thing is, it behaves like a particle. Sometimes when you're looking at it, it begins to behave like a wave. And then it's a wave. Now it's become a particle. So some scientists have even gone to the extent of saying it perhaps depends on the observer. Not fully accepted yet. And here we are saying, 2000 years ago, the Upanishads said the observer is the most important. Who is the observer? The ultimate observer is the supreme reality, which is also the core of our consciousness, which observes everything. So we fully agree that it depends on the observer. Physicists are still working on that. It depends not only on the observer. I would go one step and say there is only the observer. There's nothing that's observed. Okay, so a little bit of intellectual stimulation is required. How do we know this world which we are so sure about? How do we recognize this world which we are so very sure about? With the senses, okay? With the five senses, right? Really? Is it what the senses present to us? Could it be something else too? 1 minute. Now, I see this microphone in front of my eyes. I can hear it when I knock. The sense is also working. I can see it. My eyes are working. Chakshu. You can almost smell it. I cannot taste it because I don't want to. So all the senses are engaged in recognizing this. At least let's think about one sense, which is perception. Eyes. So I see with my eyes and I say, this is a round object which has a net kind of thing around it. It's attached to a rod here, and there's a wire going and so on and so forth. And I say it is this size. This is what my senses say. And based on my previous knowledge which I have gathered, I said this is what they call a microphone because it kind of takes my voice and expands it. It's the idea I have. But what do I see? This shape. Now, can we ask this question? Can we trust the eyes that say that it is round? Can we fully trust the eyes? Every morning we see the sunrise. Every morning. Any kid in the high school would tell you that the sun neither rises nor sets, Dad. It's the earth that's moving and so on. But we see every day. Can we believe it? If seeing is believing, there are many things which we cannot see, which we might have to believe. Can we really say that something is the shape that you really see it in? I'm going to explain this a little more. You might say it's too much of a far-drawn comparison, but let's come down to this. Do you know, I'm sure you know, that different creatures have different kinds of eyes? We have not got into an elephant's head and looked through its eyes. We don't know what its optical instruments are. And therefore we don't know how it sees us when it sees us. Maybe it sees us like a big giant, which is why it gets all agitated. Or we think we are small and he is big. The optical instrument of seeing may be different. The common housefly has compound eyes. Can you imagine how it would see this microphone? Might see many round things put together. But I see it this way, so I say it is what? This is correct. For me, absolute truth. For the fly, that is the absolute truth. Right? Why? Because I was born with a certain kind of lens in my eyes. If I was born with a different set of eyes, like instead of a convex lens, if I had a concave lens, suppose, how would I see this microphone? Different. I might call it microphone if I am taught from childhood, this is a microphone. But my idea of the microphone is completely different from your idea of the microphone. Actually it is. Let's not get into that. So all I'm trying to say, that your idea of the world is entirely based on your five senses, on your instruments of perception. Therefore don't accept it as absolute and say this is what it is. If that is so, then we really don't know how the world is. We know only the impressions given to us by our senses. We really don't know how it is. We are 100% sure we know, but we don't. We know only the images that are given to us. But something must be existing, right? Whatever be the image presented, different in some cases, different in the other, something exists. So we say that all that is pure existence. How and in what mode it exists is very relative, therefore not correct, not true. And as you advance into the understanding of your own self, which is of the essence of consciousness, you also begin to understand that all the world is also that consciousness evolved in different ways. Let me put it this way. Imagine that in the beginning of creation, there's energy coming at one frequency only. And then suddenly it splits into different frequencies. And the different frequencies are what we see as different things. Originally, there is only one frequency, there is only one. So, if you retract from seeing outside and go within, what the Upanishad calls the Nivritti Marga, as opposed to the Pravritti Marga, going outward, you begin to realize that in essence everything is one. But first it has to be found here. It can't be found there. When it's found here, then it's understood. When this is understood, then everybody is yours and you're everybody's. There is no everybody. What do you mean of everybody? Means every body. There are no such bodies. You think it's a theory? Not a theory, my dear friend. It's a fact. We need to look into this carefully. And all the sadhanas that are done is basically to dehypnotize ourselves from this conditioning that everything is different. There's only one. It's not. People say, meditating, are you hypnotizing yourself? I say, no, we are dehypnotizing ourselves for what we have been taught from childhood, that everything is different. Everything is one. When one has understood that, then the Upanishad says sorrow doesn't touch you. Because sorrow also becomes part of you. It's not, it has lost its sting. दुख तो अपना साथी है. Sukh is like coming and going. So if you're a friend, then what's the problem out there? Nothing. So be friendly with dukkha. Not deliberately, but when it comes. So understand that the world, the universe that you see with your 5 instruments of observation or instruments of perception ultimately evolves from yourself, how you look at it. And you are the reality. Now, there is one basic problem here, which is the mind is so scattered. It's going here, it's going there, and we need to bring it to some kind of a stability before you can. Theoretically, yes, one can understand, before one can actually begin to see this. One of the biggest problems in this is the feeling that I know. Because if you know, then nothing else will get in there. We are successfully sealed from getting anything new in, because I know. And therefore the Upanishad says, he who knows, knows not, and you who knows not, knows. No, this doesn't mean that you should say, I don't know, therefore I know. Because I sometimes encounter people who come to me and say, sir, I don't know anything. Please, just a minute. What have you done till now? Well, I have done this, I have done that. You just now said you don't know anything. So it's not that. So this session is about to be over for an hour session. We have a small break and I come back again. I want to tell you a little story and then close this session. Because you'll forget everything that I said, but the story you'll remember. normal. So, it's about a great being, a great person who is an expert in all the Shastras. A very orthodox Brahmin from the south who had studied all the scriptures and all the Vedanta, and, Tantras and the Agamas and the Sri Vidya, which is part of the Tantra, Agamas, and so on. Anybody knows any? Hmm? You know? You know. There was a great man called Ganapathi Shastrigal, who was Shastrigal is the word used for nothing to do with the seagull. This Ganapathi Shastrigal, anything that you said about the Indian Shastras, he knew. But he was still searching for the truth. He's still searching for the truth. He said, I know, but I'm looking for the essence of the Upanishad. And he always felt there was a barrier before him. So, in his search, he had met many great men. In fact, he was also a great poet in Sanskrit and Tamil. So he was called Kavyakanta, the jewel of poets. Then somebody told him that there is a sage, or somebody we think is a sage, sitting up on the hill in Tiruvannamalai. It doesn't mean that anybody is sitting in Tiruvannamalai now, but anyway. So, now that has also become a habit. People go wear cowpins, sit down, who am I? Will you find who you are by chanting, who am I? Anyway. Or people go around the mountain and say, we have attained moksha. So, poor Ramana Maharishi. Anyway, so Kavyakanta Ganapathi Shastri, searching, finally heard that there was somebody sitting on the hill on the Tiruvannamalai hill, and he went up. So Maharishi was not well known at that time. He was an unknown man sitting there in front of the cave quietly. He had an assistant who used to make food for him. So he went to him. He didn't know what he was going for. He sat in front of him. No reaction. His eyes were open, but he was staring into the void. So he sat for a long time, no reaction. Then finally, he focused on him, looked at him, and he did this, which is a gesture in India meaning what? What do you want? Or what's your problem? Something like that. So he was waiting for the cue. He started off. In 10 minutes, he might have said everything that he has done in his life, from the study of the Vedas to the, the Sri Vidya and Puranas and Agamas and all that, and all the kinds of meditation I have practiced. And he went on, and then he stopped. And he asked him, now sir, what am I supposed to do? This classic reaction of Ramana Maharishi. He said, can you shut up for a minute? He asked him in Tamil, "Konja neram summa irukka mudiyuma? Can you please keep quiet for a while?" And he kept quiet. But all the preparation was of great help. The moment he became quiet, he got what he wanted. He understood, because that's why truth is called Shruti. And a person is prepared and ready for it. One word uttered is enough to get it. So I'm not saying that all the time the work that Shastrigal put into his life to study all this thing was a waste. I wouldn't say that. But then he had come to a place where he thought to know is more than to keep quiet. So therefore in that last moment it clicked. Because till now he had made a beautiful mold and he has put the clay into it and closed both sides of the mold. So he couldn't see the image inside because they're closed from both sides. Maharishi opened the mold and he saw the image. See what I mean? So while we need the mold, you need to also break it at some point. Otherwise you can't see what is inside. We need it to shape oneself. Yes, so now we have a break, right?